Hi! Welcome back to another episode of Kris Dyer's Creative Friends, the super awesome podcast show where me, your artist friend Kris Dyer, talks to all of his awesome creative friends. Today, my special guest is Kris Markovich, who's an awesome, legendary pro skater, an old friend of mine, and a great painter and artist who has lots of beautiful and wise things to share with us. So I hope you enjoy this conversation. Woo!
While the world is burning, got to make amends. Walk on the sunny side with a positive lens. Talks about passion between the women and the men. Kris Dyer and his creative friends. Darling, ooh, ooh,
Thanks for having me out here skating.
Of course,
Woo!
of course.
Nice little sesh. You come here skating every day?
Pretty much, yeah. Like, I mean, we'll go street skating, pick our spots, but like, it's not like it used to be when we'd go street skating, get in the car and go for all day and look for spots. Like, I'd rather like that time now I can spend with my son or my wife, you know. So and I live real close to this park, so it's just if it's dry, then I'll go here. It's the best bet, like that I know I'll be able to skate. Because a lot of times, like, I don't know, street skating here isn't the easiest. So you have to like kind of plan it and know where you're gonna go, or you can be in the car all day just driving around. Like,
Right, and it's so hot.
yeah.
Like, you don't want to go out there and boil on the pavement.
No, definitely not down here. But luckily it's the winter months now, and this is when the weather's amazing down here. So
Is
like,
summer intolerable for skating?
if you're not from here and you come and you just get out of the car or like wake up and I'm gonna go skate, then you're just like, oh my god, you have to have like 3 or 4 shirts, a gallon of water, like
3 or 4 shirts.
if I come here in the morning in the summertime, my backpack is full of shirts and a towel. Like, you go through shirts, like that's how I kind of judge my session. I'll know, like, all right, I'll text your name, be like, all right, I got 2 more shirts, so I'll be home in about an hour and a half.
That's so funny.
Yeah, but I mean, I thought moving here I wasn't gonna be able to handle the heat and skate, but I mean, I kind of just dealt with it and slowly but surely skated every day, and then just living here, you just kind of acclimate to it, and I don't know, I don't mind it now. Like, now that the cooler months are here, I find myself in the morning, like here, like 9 in the morning, trying to warm up, and it's still like 55 degrees. I'm like, oh my God, where's the summer? I want it warm again, because when it's hot, you're just instantly warmed up. You just have to stretch and go. Like,
Right.
it takes
Only
a little
when
longer.
It's cold hurts extra.
Yes,
I know
so
something
bad.
just gets to your bones. And talking about pain and your bones, like, you're like in your 40s, right? Like,
I just turned 50.
You turned 50.
Yeah, beginning
Wow.
of October, yeah. So
Man, you're in great shape, dude.
it took me a while. Like, I didn't skate for like 10 years, and during that time I wasn't unhealthy. I've like always had pretty decent eating habits, so it wasn't like I was just eating crap and not doing anything. But my excuse, anytime anybody's like, oh, you still skating? And I would just like a knee-jerk reaction, like, no man, my body hurts too bad, I can't do it.
Right.
And then when I started skating, and like it took me a good 4 months to where I could skate like 3 or 4 days in a row. Like, I would skate and then just be too sore, and then, you know, I would slowly, okay, 3 or 4 days later, I'll go back to the park. And now I've finally gotten to the point where I can skate every day. Like, if I don't hurt myself or like overstress something, then I try to skate every day. And like that, even when I was younger and still like traveling and stuff, and actually like kind of having skateboarding as my main career, like towards the end I would skate, you know, like every other day, just trying to save my body.
Right.
And now I've like worked to the point where I'm at every day, and it's a good feeling. Like, it took a while, but
Nice.
but it's good. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to get there. I've had a bad knee for like a year and a half, and I'm trying to get it back in shape, and I'm like, should I skate more so it learns to tolerate it, or should I lay off it and just give it a chance to heal up?
Yeah,
I
see,
don't
that's the $1 million question. Like, if it's in my head, like if it's still on the injured side, then you want to lay off of it and then like keep it, you know, moving and exercise it, but nothing impactful or something you can twist it. But then once you're healing, then like I've kind of been of the thought to keep it going, especially like my second knee surgery I had at the ACL, and they had me going immediately, like into the machine that was moving, and then like by the end of the first week after the surgery, they had me already in physical therapy and doing stuff. So, I mean, I think if you can handle the pain and are not, don't overexert it, then I think moving it and doing shit is better. Like, so what is that old saying? Like, objects in motion tend to stay in motion.
Okay.
So like, if you keep it going, it's not gonna get, I don't know, like all the other muscles will atrophy and you're not using it, but if you kind of lightly move it and keep it going, I think that's the best protocol, is to keep it active, you know.
I'm happy I got to skate today. I haven't skated in a bit. So
You've been on one. You've been traveling. You just moved here. You got a lot on your plate.
I'm always moving, maybe not skating, but... So, Kris, I was here last Christmas. We went out skating, and you're telling me how great St. Petersburg was. And now, less than a year after, I have moved here, and I'm your neighbor. And I'm trusting that this is going to be a great place to live for many years to come. Yes. When did you move to St. Petersburg from California? Why? And why you moved out here to St. Petersburg, Florida?
All right. So when we were in California, it was right at the beginning of the lockdowns for COVID. Like about a month before that started, we were trying to figure out, our lease was up in our place, and we were like, all right, well, let's start looking and try to find if we want to stay. Like, we're in San Diego area in Oceanside. I've lived all over Southern California, and we were like, well, should we move maybe north? Like, go north and check it out for a bit. And we were, so house hunting, kicking around ideas for months. And then I had a job in Joplin, Missouri, and a mural job out there. And we put our stuff in storage, and we were getting ready to, we were in the midst of finding a place, and then the lockdowns happened. So we couldn't leave, we couldn't do anything, but our stuff was already in storage. So we were like, all right, well, we have a month and a half until Joplin, so that's all we're gonna do. Our whole focus is gonna be finding a place to live, where we wanna live. So as the day approached for us to leave, we still hadn't found anything, and we're like, man, like, our stuff's already in storage, let's go to Joplin with a clean slate and go through, we'll go to Phoenix, we'll go to Sedona, we'll go to Austin, we'll go check all these places out on our way and see if we like anything, and then we can go there. It's like we've at a perfect place in our life to like start over fresh somewhere new. So we get to Joplin and we're kind of like, oh, we don't really have anywhere we want to go. She didn't want to go back to Richmond because that's where she's from, and it was like, been there, done that, I don't want to go back. And I kind of felt the same way about Atlanta. I was like, we could go to Atlanta, but I've been there, done that, I love it there, but we should try something new. And I was like, well, we could go back to Pensacola. That's where I went to high school and I grew up there. I was like, it's beautiful there, but it's just a lot slower than San Diego, but we'll check it out. So that was our plan, go to Pensacola. And I had a friend from Pensacola living in San Diego, and he's like, hey, I heard you guys are moving to Pensacola. I'm like, yeah, we're actually on our way there now. And he's like, well, at the end of the month when I get my unemployment check, I'm moving across. And I was like, well, that'll be perfect, because we'll find a place in Pensacola, we'll get settled in, then I'll fly out, get the moving truck, and we can like caravan back out. The next day we're pulling into Pensacola, he calls and he's like, hey, have you guys ever thought of living in St. Pete? And I was like, well, I grew up coming down here to my grandmother lived in Largo, like Clearwater, Largo area.
Yeah.
So coming down as a kid, I'd seen it and been here and knew what it was like, but as an adult, I'd never been here. And Renee's never been here. She's only been to Florida, on the east coast of Florida a couple times. And I was like, well, let's just go down and check it out. And he's like, well, if you guys like it, we can move in. My friend's mom has a place. She's gonna be in California for the next year, so we can rent it. And that way we don't have to drive across country, put our stuff in storage and find a place. We just have a place. And I was like, let's do it. Let's just call it, let's go and do it. So we came down here and instantly fell in love with it. It was like, okay, and I've used this analogy before, like when we were leaving California, like we still have it. We have a really wide couch, and it was like 1 inch too big everywhere we went. So we'd always have to break it up, things like that. Our chargers, our iPad chargers, like the ransom would pull them out of the phone and something would mess up. So we were always having to jimmy rig the chargers and stuff like that. And then when we got down here, got the house, I flew to California, drove the moving truck across, and when we emptied the truck out, without seeing the living room, the couch slid in perfect, fit perfect with like 1 inch on each side. We got here, for some reason, all of the chargers started working. Everything was, there's little things like that they're inconsequential, you don't really think about.
There was some flow.
But it started working, and then immediately, like, I met a few dudes that live here, or that skate the park, And I was like, okay, cool. I got some guys that are a little older, so I'm not like chasing young skaters around to try to go. I can hook up with these older dudes.
Right.
And so I met like a really good group of people pretty much immediately. And then Renee, we got married a few months after we moved here, and she wanted to go and, you know, have her hair done. And so she picked a certain salon. She goes to the salon. Turns out the owner of the salon was in there. She met her, asked what her husband did. Oh, my husband's a pro skateboarder. She's like, oh, my husband skateboards. He was saying there's a pro skateboarder that's been coming to the park. Turns out he and I had already skated together. We were already sparking up a friendship. And it just kind of fell into place. Like, it was like Providence. Everything started working and everything seemed very natural. And like probably, I don't know, maybe a month after I got here, I went up to Augusta, Maine for a mural job. I was only there for like a week. And when I came home, she picked me up at the airport and we were driving back across the bridge and we were coming into St. Pete, and it just felt like I was home. Like like it felt like, okay, now I'm back. And I haven't had that feeling in a really long time with the place that I've lived. You know, like California, I kind of was always like, well, as soon as something better comes along, we're gonna take it and go and get out of here. It always just felt like I was trying to get out. And but now that we're here, like everything just works, and I don't know, I feel at home here.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
I'm quickly making St. Pete feel like home. I've only been here for a month. And my house is like not a disaster. It's building up. I'm just taking shit out of boxes and, you know, while running a couple of businesses and all this shit. But the people and the artists, as soon as they found out that I was moving here, so many people are ready to meet me like, oh, that's so great you're here. Please join us on this yoga studio. Please join us in this venue and this art show. Like,
it's very
you're
welcoming.
welcome.
Very welcoming.
Yeah, which was the opposite of Denver. For sure in Denver I got my fans, but a lot of artists were kind of like, oh shit, like here comes Kris and what is he gonna take from us?
Right.
And you know, and here's the opposite. It's like, what's Kris gonna come and contribute to us and to the scene, which is totally what I'm here to do. So I'm loving it. I'm happy I got a skater friend. Even though I'm always like so intimidated when I skate with like really good people like you.
You shouldn't be.
But it's always like, you know, good vibes all around. And
I mean, you moved into a good place too. Like, Gulfport's are really good. Like, seems like if there would be anywhere that would be like an old hippie commune, it would be that area. You know? And they have a really good skate park down there. It's right on the water.
Right.
Good art scene, good people. Yeah.
Well, you took me there last time.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, this seems like a little beach town, and we skated that little park. Oh, look at the beautiful blue jay. Gorgeous. Wow.
What up, buddy?
Yeah, so I was like, you know what? This could be like a place for me to live, and I kept on flirting with different places, and here I am. So
that's awesome. Well, I'm happy you're here, and I don't know.
Let's get some art jams on top of the skate jams.
Definitely.
You're originally from Atlanta, though, right?
That's
and then when did you move to California? Where have you lived before here and there?
Yeah, so I kind of break my life up into two sections, from before pro skateboarding and then after. So before pro skateboarding, I was born in Atlanta, and I lived between Atlanta, Birmingham, Alabama, and Pensacola, Florida. And then when I graduated high school, I turned pro that summer after graduating. I was 17. My parents were like, I was like, I'm moving to California when I turn 18. They're like, well, you're not gonna move by yourself across country the first time leaving the house. So when I turned 18, the whole family, we moved. My dad moved up to Tennessee to take a job for the first year that we were out there. And so yeah, we went to California, and that was in 1990. And then kind of been out there. That's where my family's still out there. And then throughout the last 30 years, like that's been my base of home, like Carlsbad. And then like I've lived in New York, I've lived in Atlanta, and I've moved around, but I kind of all went back there. And now later in life, I've relocated to Florida, and now I'm trying to pull back my mom and my sister and trying to bring them back to Florida to get them out.
Carlsbad is kind of like one of the epicenters of skateboarding, right?
Yeah, for sure. I know, I know it's kind of spread out more now. Companies have moved, but there was a time, like early 90s, like when I first moved out there, like the majority of the Southern California and Northern California, like that split, there was all the Northern California companies. There was, like Powell and stuff in Santa Barbara. But San Diego, the Southern California skateboard industry, at one point was all in Carlsbad. There were so many companies, and especially out in the like near where McGill's used to be, the inland like warehouse district. There was, I don't know, probably 30 of this industry, skateboarding, surf, and snowboarding. So it was just, you know, still North County is huge for it, but Carlsbad at one point was definitely the mecca for the industry companies.
So a pro skater would be an advantage just living there because you go to parks, you meet the right people, you get seen by the right people, and so on.
And Carlsbad, like North County, like San Diego, when you're in each one of the towns, like, you know, you have Oceanside, Carlsbad, Encinitas, Cardiff, Del Mar. Individually, they're all small towns. So when you're in them, you still have like a small town vibe. So if you're in Carlsbad and you're a skateboarder and you go, I don't know, to the mall, or you go to any like 7-Elevens at the beach, you're gonna see people within the industry. And if you're skating and you have talent and you're ripping, if you go to the parks, if you're street skating, you know, a good chance that somebody within the industry is gonna see you. So you just say if you're out there or you go there, you have a better chance of people seeing you and kind of making things happen. Not that you can't do that now anywhere with, you know, internet and social media, but early 90s when I first turned pro, it was like you pretty much had to make a pilgrimage out there to at least get your foot in the door, meet everybody, and then you could kind of establish yourself, and then you could go back to your town and go back to wherever you're from. But now it kind of seems like people are just everywhere and doing what they do.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I want to ask you a lot about your art and stuff because this podcast is mostly people who are artists who want to hear the journey of the artist and stuff. But since you started as a skateboarder, I'm going to start with that journey and then how that led you into art. So do you want to tell me, like, when do you learn to skate? When did you get good enough to be sponsored? And how you get into, like, turning into a pro skater? I know that's a long story, but...
Well, no, it kind of all leads into one. So, like, as a kid, like, growing up, on the art side of things, my mom and dad are, like, they're not outwardly creative as far as, like, making paintings. My mom always has been a seamstress. She's always had clothing companies. She's always designed and made her own things. Mm-hmm. My dad was a songwriter. None of his job didn't reflect that, but... You know, growing up, like, I'd hear stories, like, he wrote music with Jim Croce and different people, like, behind the scenes, whatever. So I was in a creative family, but I played sports, like baseball, football, as a kid. That's all I did. And then growing, probably till I was, like, maybe started high school, I still played those sports. And everybody started getting really big. So I stopped playing football because I was tiny. And then, so I whittled it down to just baseball, but I was skating all the time. My dad was my coach at baseball. And when I started skating, I started seeing, like, okay, I can do this on my own, and if I succeed or if I fail, it's on me. But if I go to my baseball game, I can play my ass off, play the best game I ever played, and the rest of the dudes on the team could suck, and then we lose, you know what I mean? It's like you end up losing because of somebody else's performance. And as a kid, I was like, I started finding skateboarding and wanting to just do that. So then getting into high school, that's when it started. It was always baseball and skateboarding, something I did on the side. And then in high school, right when I started, the skateboarding started taking more of the baseball. And then a couple years later, I broke my throwing arm. Oh. And then that kind of solidified me going to the skateboard side. And then I still always had an art book growing up, and I would always have, you know, just doodles and shit, but nothing other than that. And then when I had an art teacher my junior year, and she was really cool, and, like, was the only one that told me to continue with my doodles on my page, you know, like, and she was the only, everybody would get mad at me, all my other teachers, stop drawing in the margins, leave your paper alone, you know, whatever. And she was the only one that kind of, like, gave me the, like, you should keep doing that. So, like, I would do that, and then skateboarding, I turned pro, and I moved to California, and then I started traveling. And when I started traveling, I was on planes and trains and just always bored out of my mind listening to my, you know, countless loop on my CD player over and over again. So then I started, like, really, like, you know, keep my journal going and drawing, and then it became more of like half journal, half drawings. And then I was in New York, and I got, like, a little keychain watercolor set with, like, this little tiny watercolor pencil.
Wow. Or
watercolor brush. So then the art book started. Now it had color. So then I was, like, doing color, and then so the art became what I did while I was traveling. And then in 2000, so I probably did that for like 12 years, you know, actually kind of skating, painting. I did a couple graphics throughout the time for different companies I wrote for. And then I think 2000, when I had purchased, like I got my first house, I had an extra room and I turned it and actually had a studio where I could go in, have all my art stuff, and then I went from my art book to actually canvases and getting out and then growing. And that took me a few years to get comfortable, like actually working larger. And then skating, touring, I'd be on tour and I'd get hurt, and I'd be like a main draw on the tour to show up to this demo, and I can't skate because I'm hurt. The whole rest of the team can, but I felt like an idiot because I'd just be standing around not being able to do anything. So I'd ask, usually it's at the park or the shop or something, there's like a blank wall, or there was, you know, something in the dressing room or the bathroom. And I'd just be like, yo, I can't skate, but do you guys want me to paint something?
Yeah.
And then I would do that. And so like that kind of just sent me into that direction to where I'd be on tour. And then I'd show up to a demo and I wouldn't be hurt. And I'd do the demo and then I'd be like, yo, would you be down to paint something? So then it became the skating and painting. And then it just that's set me off on the journey of doing that. And then, so I've always been this skateboarder that's they've all been the same. And then like as one, the Kris Markovich is a skateboarder and then Kris Markovich is the artist.
Right.
And they're just one. And I tried to separate them at a time and like, all right, I'm gonna focus on my art and then I'll let skating. And then now, 50 years old, I'm finally realizing like I'm just one dude. I'm just me, and I'm the skateboarder and an artist. And it's now like I'm finally like okay, not okay, because I'm not like I was ever like, oh, I'm torn. I don't know what I am. But just outwardly, like when people would look, it's like, oh, he's a pro skateboarder that paints, or he's a painter that skates. You know,
right.
So now it's just all one. I'm just me, and that's what I do.
Yeah, painter, or would you consider yourself a skate artist? Like I don't even know what a skate artist is other than art on skateboards, but anybody can put art on a skateboard.
I would say without label, I mean I've never known how to label my art.
Right.
My art's this way or that way, or I'm a this or that. But if you were to break it down and have to label, I would guess I would be the epitome of a skate artist, because I am a skateboarder. I have been my whole life. That's the one thing I've done consistently throughout anything else.
You lived it and
life.
bleed it.
It's influenced every like cell of my being. That's where the art I saw came from. It was on the photos in Thrasher, on Nadas and Mark Gonzalez's grip tape, on Lance Mountain's grip tape. So like that's where it comes from. And like I love looking at other artists and going to galleries and seeing art, but there's so much out there that like it's overwhelming.
Right.
To where for me, if I just go through my life daily, normal, look at skateboarding stuff, but that's where surf, skate, and snow, like that's
the culture that attracts you. That is you.
Yeah.
This whole story that you're telling me about you doing art during skate tour reminds me of I believe it's Neil Blender in the 80s, and I saw this from a Betamax probably tape in Peru when I was still living there. And it was a competition, and he just stopped skating and started tagging, and I was like, what the fuck's he doing? He's supposed to skate, but he's doing art, and that shit blew my mind. It's like, what? I didn't understand it.
Neil Blender was huge like influence for me. Not so much on like the content of his art, but just how he did it and how he went about doing it. It was just anywhere he was. I'm sure it's the way it is now with his art. I've seen him do watercolor paintings when we did 88. He worked with us and had a shoe out for 88. He would do these just the raddest quick watercolor paintings, and it just had so much like feeling in it, and it would be done real quick. And it's, that's just years and years and years of him doing it, and it looks super quick and simple, but.
Right,
yeah.
But he's in the flow of his expression. So when you turned pro, you were living in Atlanta?
I was in Pensacola at that time. I had just graduated high school.
Okay.
And I was in Pensacola, Florida.
Who you turned pro with?
Dogtown.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, it was right. It was
That's so cool.
A short stint. I was on Dogtown for 8 months, and then when I went to the Reno. It was funny. We were talking about Lance Conklin. When we went to the Reno Am Finals back then, they had the NSA contest. They would do like a regional or district regionals, and then they'd have the finals out. And this one was in Reno. And it's all the amateurs throughout the U.S. at that time. And Lance is from St. Pete, and I was from Pensacola. and we went to that. It was the Reno Am Finals in 1990, and Lance won, and I got second. And then fast forward 30 years later, I'm living in St. Pete and hang out with Lance and Scott, both of those dudes. So
nice. That's awesome. So you started with Dogtown, and you didn't have to move to Venice or California to be in with them?
I kind of did, yeah. Like that was the thing. They were in SF at the time. That's where they were located. And the whole plan was for me to move out to California and move to San Francisco. And I was supposed to work in the warehouse during the day. I'd work in Dogtown in the warehouse during the day, and then skate and whatever after. And we were in San Francisco for 2 weeks every day looking for places to live, and then we couldn't find anything. And we were just blowing through our money that we had saved for first and last. And my mom was like, let's just go to San Diego and take a break. I went to school near there and college, so I'm losing my mind. We're losing all our money. And we came down to San Diego, and like the next day, like I went skating with a bunch of my friends, and then we got back to my buddy's house, and she's like, hey, my friend's mom was like, hey, your mom left a message, and here's the address. She guys rented a place. You guys had a place in Carlsbad, and then that's how I moved to San Diego. And Dogtown was pissed. Like they were not happy that I didn't move to Northern California. And then I moved to Southern California, and that was at
Which
the
is
time.
Ironic, because that's where the brand started, right?
Right. And at this time though, they were having like, that was the height of NorCal, Southern California, like the rivalry. This was 90.
Okay, 1990.
1990, yeah.
Wow.
And I was just a kid from Florida. I didn't really know that there was that big of a beef between like Thrasher and Trans World and those companies and the Southern California companies. And I came out and got thrown right into the mix of it, because as soon as I didn't go up to SF, and they were just being dicks. So I was like, I don't want to ride for you guys. And I had just met Gator, like literally that week that I moved out.
Wow.
And he was trying to get on GNS. So I went skating with him, with all the dudes at GNS that he was working to get on. I ended up getting on GNS, and he didn't, and ended up going and riding for, I think, I don't know, Fish Lips or something, and that's who he rode for right before he killed that girl, and then that all happened. Wow. But I had moved to California, so I was already, like, they were trying to get me on GNS when Dogtown wasn't being too nice to me, so I was like, all right, I'm out. And then.
So this is like, early 90s, like 1990, when like the skate fad of the 80s was going down, and before the 90s wave going up. So this is like a really low time between also vertical skateboarding, and thus why Gator's trying to get on and find a new way, and street skating coming up in the 90s.
Yeah, that was.
And you were a street skater.
Right on the cusp, right on that wave. Like, I moved to California November of 1990, and that was the year Vert died. Like 89, 88, 89, 90, that was like the nail in the coffin for that. And all the Vert skaters were floundering trying to make the crossover. And a handful of them did. I mean, obviously like Tony Hawk and those, like Lance Mount, Steve Caballero, like there was a handful of Vert guys that, and it was only a few, well no, I guess it went on a lot longer than that. I was gonna say it was only a few years that it was, Vert struggled, but no, it was a good amount of the 90s that Vert was pretty much dead.
Right.
And yeah, so that was, I think we were, like my generation, I had just turned pro and we were the first of the new street skaters, but skating was, it was on the come up, but we was just on the start. So it was in a really weird area, weird time, which was it was great because you could do it anywhere.
That's the era of like Rocco and all, and and Andy Howell and New Deal and all the brands that were made by skaters for skaters. Did you get on one of what?
I rode for I was on the Rocco company. I rode for 101.
101.
Yeah, and it's funny because. Like,
did he give you a stupid graphic?
No, actually, I mean, I'm sure I had some pretty messed up ones, but for the most part, they were really good. Like my first board was the Marvin the Martian Thumbs Up series.
Oh, cool.
So I was
but that's a stupid graphic.
Oh, it's stupid, but it's collectively, that was the first one that they did through Blind World 101. They did it through all, so they had a series through it, and it's still to this day, like if you have that series, like God, I mean, it's worth a lot of money.
That's
The
probably
original.
also like the slick deck that won't scratch.
Yeah, right. That was. I had a few of this. Like, I had an Evil Knievel slick that I really liked. I had some slicks, but I didn't like that. I didn't like them. They made the board like wafery, like boom, 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 because you hit the plastic.
Yeah.
So I had them, but I never really rode too many of them.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, that was. I came out 90, got on 101. Street skating was brand new. So like. It's real easy to seem like I'm going, oh, back in my day it was the best, but like it literally was way different. Like Southern California, San Diego, 1990 to 1995, like you could skate anywhere. Like you didn't really get kicked out. Like people knew what skateboarding was, but they didn't really.
They didn't
so
expect
you
you
could
jumping
go
off
anywhere.
stairs and doing rails.
And if anything, you get out, you're kicked out. So like
Yeah.
we had the run of it. And you could do anything, anywhere, and now like it's just a lot more work put into it. You got to go, you have to find the spot, you have to go at night, generator and lights, go deal with security,
skate stoppers everywhere.
skate stoppers everywhere. This was like free for all, open. And it was like
so fun.
It was everything was new, and it was like the world was right there. So like
it's got this like Dogtown looking for empty swimming pools kind of vibe, you know?
And it is the exact same thing, but it was like somebody just opened the door to the city and we're like, here you go. And it
Here's
was like
your new skate park.
people had been skating in the city for years, but now the industry and the magazines and everything were focusing on it. So like you could do anything, like nothing was off limits. Like if you wanted to skate a curb, you could skate a curb. And if you did a boneless on the curb, cool. But if you did a boneless on the bench, then it's even better because you're on the bench. Like it just didn't matter. You could do anything. And like I think that's what was really, really cool about skateboarding is it was so new that and there was so much creativity. And like, I mean, there still is in skateboarding, and I just think it's lost a little bit of, it's just in a different direction. Like there's creativity, but there's so much and so many skateboarders that everybody's good now,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? So now it's like you gotta find, now it's very niche-y, you can find
Right, it's all like very specific, but say like starting street skating, that's like opening up a whole fucking genre and you can go in a ton of directions. Like what would be a kind of skateboarding that's not vert or ramps and it's not street, like whatever that next thing is, that whoever invents that's fucking...
Well, I think where that's going now is you've got guys like iShod and Zion and dudes that can skate everything, that can skate a 35-step handrail and then go into a bowl and do a 540 in the bowl, like all-terrain vehicles, Grant Taylors, that can skate everything. I think unless there's going to be some crazy genre like the super ramp and the mega ramp and like those things, like those dudes are on a whole other level. Elliot Sloan, Bob Burnquist, like those dudes.
Jake Brown.
Yeah, Jake, like those dudes, unless somebody invents something like that, then I think the next thing is just the most technical all-around dude. Like kid that can win, I don't know, like Battle of the Barracks on the flat ground stuff, but then also go and skate a vert contest and win the vert contest. And
so versatility is
ATV,
the next thing.
Yeah, and there are skaters like that now. Like it's the new young guys that can skate everything are just like, it's amazing to watch because they're like, it's not, you can watch them and just continually watch it through the spectrum. You don't have to be like, oh, he's rad, but then he's not too good on this or he's not too good on that. But like when you see them, they skate everything. To see somebody with that much control and that type of control, it's something special to see.
It's like an artist that's just good at any medium. You give him some watercolors, he'll kill it. You give him some charcoal, he'll kill it. You give him spray paints, he'll figure it out fairly quickly. So in this path of being like the pro skater, like when did skateboarding blow up again? And in that situation, you became like a superstar of sorts. How was that experience? Was there like money and fame and ego and confusion and drugs and sex, or did you always keep it real? Or what was the experience of that?
So I think I kind of always missed the boat on that stuff in the sense of either I was too early or never too late. I think just too early for me. Like I was in the first wave of street skating when there was no money in it. And then we were the first to bring, not we were the first, but while I was doing it, that's when like corporate companies were coming in with corporate money and trying to get in a little bit. I had shoe sponsors, there was some good money to be made and I made good money, but I was just before the like $1 million deals, or dudes are getting, you know what I mean? Where it's, so now it's like, it's not unheard of for a dude to make, oh, you're riding for us, all right, you get $5,000 a month or whatever, you know, and that's just like an easy starting thing. To where, like, I missed the boat on that, to where the dudes that came after me had it to where they could get a lot more money. And
that would have been like what, like mid-90s, late-90s when it started blowing up again?
Late 90s, 2000, early 2000s is when everybody was, that's when all the corporate money was starting to come in.
Like by Margera.
Yeah, and like those dudes, so like Bam, I think just, he obviously went a different route in the sense of, he had MTV that was behind him, and all of his, you know, antics and the shit that he did. So it wasn't like, I don't know, I think that just that was a whole monster that just kind of happened, you know, like over because he like hit like lightning struck for that, you know, because it was the skateboarding, the MTV, everything just happened at the right moment, and it just took off for him, to where, I don't know, I don't think I would have wanted to be in that, have that level. Like, I mean, I've been with Bam around when the fame part is overwhelming, and I'm not
on land speed. Were you on land speed?
No. But I was on Tomieto like right after that, and so I remember, like, I mean, and I saw firsthand how giant that whole, just even CKY, like when that video came out and like what it was gonna be.
Yeah.
And then once the MTV got behind it, like, I went to Japan with Bam, and it was like you couldn't do anything. Like, he couldn't go anywhere, and I was just with him like on the Hawk tours too, like him and Tony combined, that was like
crazy,
insane. To where I was able to like live vicariously through them, and kind of go and hang out with them while that was going on, and see enough of it to know that I don't want that. Like,
that
I wouldn't want
suck.
That. And especially for Bam now, like, I mean, this was a few years ago. I know he's dealing with his issues and stuff, but a few years ago when he was trying to get back into skating, and I know it physically his body's beat.
Woo! Damn, I hope he doesn't crash.
I know, and that comes right to a stoplight right there. But yeah, for Bam, like when he was trying to get back into skating, like the last thing you want to do is go to a crowded park where people are going to recognize you if you haven't skated in a few years.
Right, the pressure.
Regardless of what you've done or haven't done in your career or whatnot, it's still, you're going to be in your head so much. And for him, he couldn't go anywhere. Like, everybody's bam, 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 bam.
Yeah,
and if Bam bails a kick turn or bails something for, oh, Bam sucks. And it's like, and it's that kind of shit. So for him, like, he couldn't do anything. That's why he started building all the parks at his house. So he'd have the private ones, and and then like whatever.
Well, that was an experience, interesting experience to have, to go to Japan with Bam and Tony. Holy shit! Like that's fun.
The amount of people, like, you show up to a place with like a Tony Hawk or a Bam, just the level of the demo. Like, you walk in on your normal thing, there's maybe 400 or 500 people there on a normal, like, your company tour. You show up to a place like on the Hawk tour, and you get out and you walk in, and like, at the minimum 5,000 people there, and they're all like waiting for this demo, and like, then you show up and it's like instant demo. Like, Tony goes out there, and Tony's like on command, can drop in and just do the demo winners. So it's definitely a different animal and a different beast when you do stuff with those guys. But yeah, like I said, I'd much rather be
where you're at. You're in this nice sweet spot where you're a well-respected, legendary pro skater, and the skaters know you, but also you can go anywhere and no one's gonna like stop you and from just living a normal life, which is a beautiful thing too.
It's cool. Like, my wife and my son get to see it sometimes. Like, randomly we'll be somewhere and someone will come up and ask me if are you Kris Markovich or whatever. And that's cool for my son to be able to see that and shit. But and I like it that way, where it's just few and far between. I wouldn't want it to where it's like every day, like somebody comes up. Like, oh.
That's how I got it, you know. Every now and then, like oh, you're Kris Dyer. It's like, woo. But most people don't know me, except if I'm going to a specific place like a festival or art
I'm sure
show.
Once you cut your dreads off too, that kind of eased it up a little bit.
Like, I'm undercover now.
Right.
But you said that you had stopped skating for 10 years, so there was definitely a point where you're like, oh, I'm not a pro skater anymore. I'm over this. I'm just gonna move on. How was that experience? Because I always feel like I got a lot of pro skater friends, and I'm like, when you're at the top of your career in your 20s, you're fucking like crushing it and you're a superstar, but skateboarding is really tied into your body, that gets beat up, and then at one point it ends. And where does that leave you? Did you crash emotionally and your self-identification? Emotionally, like how was that experience?
It was fucked. To be brutally honest, it was fucked. Because I was late 30s, like 38, 39. I had a blow up with the company that I was riding with, my partners. We stopped doing that. And it just seemed like everything, all my sponsors, I lost like 3 sponsors for being too old. So that was a blow. And then I said a bunch during my career that if I was ever looked like I was struggling on my skateboard to film, or if it just felt off, then I was gonna walk away. And it came to this point where it was like 2012. I was like, I don't have anything left. None of my sponsors, I don't have any sponsors, and I have no potential sponsors. It was like the first time in a long time, and it felt kind of nice to not have to, I've got to go do this. I was kind of free, and for the longest time, I was mentally dealing with, am I a skateboarder that paints? Am I really an artist? Am I this? And I kind of like, am I lying to myself? Am I like, do I have these delusions of grandeur that like, would people want my art if I wasn't the skateboarder? Are people only buying my art because I'm a skateboarder and they can tie those two together? Like, and I just did that for a while. And then I was like, you know what, fuck it, I'm done. I don't have any sponsors, so I'm not gonna pursue it. And then I just kind of slinked off into kind of obscurity as far as skateboarding went. And then, like, it was a harsh realization when, for 20 plus years, my sponsors, like, I don't talk about myself. I've never been that dude. Like, if you come to see skateboarding and you like my skateboarding, that's what's gonna talk for me. I'm not gonna tell you about my skateboarding. I'm not gonna tell you to watch my tricks or what tricks I do. I was fine with going out and filming the trick or shooting the photo and then giving everything to my sponsors and letting them market it and push it and do that. Mm-hmm. That was the one thing that I greatly underestimated would happen. Like, when I pulled away from the industry, I had zero support, and I had to figure out how to promote myself and how to be comfortable with myself and how to tell people, or just even be able to be like, yes, I am an artist. I am now an artist. I always was. It was just in my head, trying to convince myself. And I dealt with the same kind of shit when I started skating again. When I came here, in my head, am I an idiot? Like, I'm 50 years old. Like, I'm about to turn 50. What am I doing? I'm not trying to start a skate career again, but it's happening. Like, it's just falling into place. I was skating, and the more I skated, the better I felt. The better my artwork was reflecting in it. So it was like everything was helping each other kind of elevate. And then skateboarding started happening. Sponsors started coming, and it's, for the longest time in my head, I'm like, dude, are these people making fun of me? Like, are they, you know what I mean? Like, that's what I was dealing with. Like, same thing with the BAM situation. Like, I don't know, like, where am I? And then I just had to, like, just kind of, you have to stop or you go insane. And now, like, for me, like, it's what it is. Like, I don't lean too far. I don't try to look into things too much, and just do what makes me happy, and just, I don't know. And I kind of just rambled off into obscurity on that one. Sorry.
No, that's good, because, you know, it seems like there's, you know, pro skaters are usually rebellious teens that get good at a rebellious activity, and then all of a sudden a brand or mainstream or society puts you up on a pedestal and it's like, everybody look at this guy, and then your ego can like blow up, but then eventually that shit goes down, and then where that leaves you, it leaves you looking at the mirror being like, oh shit, was that a lie? Or am I good because I'm good and fuck what other people say? And also like, but what's my new path? Like, it seems like a lot of skaters that were big, like pro skaters, either move into the industry and make their own companies, or they become artists, or they do something in relationship to the thing that they love, or they do something totally different, and they forget that they once was that famous pro skater.
See, it's weird. For me, when I didn't skate and I was trying to figure out my way in the art world, I feel like I lost a huge part of who I was, because I wasn't doing something. So like, for me to be able to go back and do just skateboard at any level kind of helped me find myself again and realize like this isn't just, you're not fragmented, like it's all one. Like my life isn't what I used to do or what I'm gonna do or what I could do. Like no, my life is what I am right now, and what I've become, and where all the fucked up things that I've done in the past, all the mistakes I've made, all the ego, all the whatever, like I would not change one thing, because any one flap of that butterfly wing could change everything, and I wouldn't have my wife and my son. And that's my world. Like, yeah, I could have done a few things different and have fuck you money now, you know? I wouldn't have my wife and my son, you know, because I wouldn't have gone down that path. I wouldn't, you know, so I love my life, like every bit of it, you know, and all the ups and all the downs and all the doubt and self-doubt, you know, like in the end, like it's hard enough to wake up in the morning breathing and close your eyes at night breathing and be happy in some point in the middle of that. On the lowest level of things, like it's hard enough for every human just to do that, and to be able to do that and be happy throughout the day and find things you enjoy and find things that aren't gonna drive you insane. Like once you find that, you can't let that go, you know. And that's kind of where I'm at right now. Like I'm not, like I have art shows coming up, I have art that I'm working on, I have videos that I'm filming, things that I'm trying to do, and those will all happen and those will all come. I'm just trying to just get from this moment to the next, and with a smile on my face, and hopefully smile on people's faces that are around me, you know. So
well, that's all great wisdom, man. Being a human being in the physical plane is hard enough of an experience. Might as well just be yourself. And we're lucky enough that we're being public people that a lot of people know, and that's a blessing because it gives us our living out of the thing that we love. But there's also a lot of pressure. It's like, oh, who do we have to be for these people who are in a way supporting us? So in the end, if we support ourselves and just being whatever the fuck we are, like good skater, bad skater, good artist, bad artist, as long as like, hey, I am what I am and I'm trying my best. Like, I know I'm not a good skater, but I love skating, and I don't want to stop skating. It's part of me, and I'm not trying to prove anything. I just want to keep on doing it.
Nor should you. But the best part about it is skateboarding comes through in your art, and it always will. Whether it's there's a skateboard setup that's in the foreground of the mural that you're painting, like, or there's a fucking skateboard in your mural, like that's a part of who you are. You're a skateboarder, you know, like.
And a little bit of the punk vibe.
And that's kind of what I'm meaning. Like that's you, that encompasses you. So like not having the skateboard in there, it wouldn't be all you. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter how good you are. Like that's the one thing. Like for me, like I'm okay with it. Like I know, like I have friends that are just as old, like skating, that are like, man, I used to be able to do this. I hate it. I can't do this anymore. I'm like, yeah, but you can do this. Like, be happy that you're doing this. How many other 55-year-old people do you know that are just miserable at their job, that they have to leave their family for every day and go, and they come home, and that's a huge chunk of their life that's just not, that doesn't really equate to anything, you know? Like you're able to still do something that makes you happy that you did 30 years ago. Like I had a reunion up in Pensacola like 6 months ago, and I have a photo from my senior year of high school of all of us at the skate park, and there's like 5 of us. Fast forward 30 years later, we took the same photo at this little reunion and we all went skating. And I'm like, dude, this is what it's about. Like when we were 15 and we dreamed about being in California, and now we're all together doing this 30 years later. This is insane. Like there's such a tiny percentage of human beings that can say that they're still friends with these 5 people and are blessed to be able to do the things you were doing when you were 15. Like, yeah, everybody's gone off in their own directions and dealt with their own life deals and life hammers and life situations. But to come back that long later and we all still have this one thing, the love for the skateboard, like, I don't know, man, it's amazing.
That's awesome, man. And it's great that you're transitioning. Well, you're still a pro skater that's sponsored, so it's not like you're transitioning out of that, you're still doing it, but I'd say you're focusing more now on art, though your art was always part of of your skating, I remember you had graphics when you were on Blind. I still got the tick. I was like, whoa, this is awesome. And then later on, I was like, oh, that's Kris Markovich's art in itself. And then, I don't know if you remember meeting me. We met each other 15 years ago at an ASR, 2006, San Diego. And you had your Crimson booth.
Mm-hmm.
We got a picture together. It's really dark, but I was like, oh, cool.
I remember
I don't know if you knew my art already at the time, but it seemed like we vibed because we stayed in touch.
Did, and I have pictures that I think you sent. I gotta look them in. They're in storage in an old book I have. I have books of like not disc cameras, but your digicam photos in my art book. That I would take and get developed, and I know there's some. I have a couple photos of you. I think at the Crimson booth.
Yeah.
And it was the booth that we had painted, right? The mural, the whole booth. Yeah. No, there's photos of you there in the booth.
How was making? That was your brand, right?
Mm-hmm.
Was that your first brand?
Well, I had Hollywood, and Hollywood was that before or after? Yeah, I did Hollywood before, but I didn't own it, and I just did I was the art director gave the ideas to Nilo, the artist that was in-house artist at Tomieto. But when we did Crimson, that was my ex-wife and 2 partners, and we budgeted out the money. We did everything. We came up with everything, and the last thing we came down to was we didn't budget money for artwork. We had to pay for artwork, and they're all like, "No, you're going to do the artwork." And that was the first time that I'd had a couple graphics out. I did a graphic for color and one for Blind and a couple here and there, but I'd never done like to that level of putting my artwork out there and to base a company around my artwork. That was 2008, and that was like the first time I just put it all out there. And then from that one, that's the company that I had the discrepancy with my partners, and then we ended up splitting. That was kind of the little part of the snowball that started the end of it. Like once that snowball went off and Crimson was done, that's when it just rolled into more. From Crimson we did Given, and I was like, that was in spite of everything else, just to keep something going. I didn't want to do that, and I was already like exiting. And then when that ended, that was pretty much that was it.
It almost seems like, when you're in the industry as a pro skater, you have to deal with the industry. And sometimes the industry can ruin the whole art form of being a skateboard and expressing yourself through this beautiful
It is,
way.
and I don't want to put any, it's just not good to put negative out there. So I don't really want to focus anything negative on it, but you can very easily just sit here and do a 5-hour podcast on all the negatives of the industry, and all the gross little nuances and the things that just suck about it. But on the flip side, and it's just a small little bit to go, you don't have to go that far to find how rad it is too, so it's just as shitty as it is. It's awesome, and I'd rather focus on the cool shit about it,
Right.
And that's because you can find negative and bad in every industry out there, in everything.
Yeah,
And
Babylon is Babylon, and they want a piece of skateboarding too, I guess.
It just sucks. I guess the thing that I don't like about it is when you see it, like, over time corrupt people that you knew. Like, there's people in the industry that I knew, and they're still fine. I'm friends with them, and it's not like they're corrupt and evil people.
Right.
But just
they got an agenda.
They've changed. And they've changed from the skateboarder working with the corporate stuff to now that they're just corporate. All their decisions and all their thoughts are based around numbers and the bottom line. And not that if it's cool to do it or we should do this because it's rad. No, it's all like, oh, we're not going to do it because the bottom line isn't there. And it's all changed. And it's just
right.
But I get it. I mean, it's the nature of the beast. If you're going to fucking, commit to being a part of a system and a part of something, like, and you stay in it for 20 years, you're gonna become what that is.
Yeah, you can't like be in it and fight it.
I mean, the greatest dudes, they're still like, and like I said, I won't name names. Like, there's a couple dudes that I know, and I've watched them every 6 months or every couple years do a complete 180, and they're just a whole new person, and that's great for them. You know what I mean? Like, that's awesome that you're able to remake yourself, but you're just becoming this weird amalgamation of what you used to be, and like the decisions you're making, like it's just, ugh, you know, like you need to step away and go and like do something out of the industry for a little while. But
Totally. Yeah, I get it. I only, like always just an artist, you know.
Right.
An artist can be a little bit detached from the industry, but once I became a brand manager and art director for creation, then I had to be like,
then you have to deal with it.
now
You
I gotta
see it.
like get all the magazines all the time, see what's hot, see what's happening, see
So
where
you
I
just
get
have to
my brand.
become like, you have to know, like you immerse yourself and become this, like it's a lot.
It's a lot of
It's
fucking
a lot.
homework, and I didn't really care that much what other people were doing. But if I didn't, it looked like I was a fish out of water in the trends, and the kids who buy want the trends. Not that I was putting out the trends, I was doing this spiritual art thing that is not what they were looking
the
for.
creation
But
stuff was dope. Like,
Yeah.
it was a good. It fit its area for the time. Like there wasn't anything else really like that, was there? Like when you guys started doing it.
well, I guess there's other hippie brands like Element, which was very
Well,
corporate.
yeah, but I mean, Element, I think they went that way and were able to dip their toe in the genre just because of the writers that they had. You know, Evan Smith and like Nate Jones, and like Nate was on Element, right?
I think so.
I think so. They just had a few dudes that were
Yeah.
and Johnny's a bit hippie-ish in his.
Well, then
and not
you
in a
had
bad way.
Jake Rupp.
Jake
at the
Rupp.
time.
What's his name from Portland, Oregon?
Yeah,
He's so
with a
good.
great style.
It's gonna come to me in a second.
Yeah. It's also.
Oh my God, he has the best alley fronts at all.
Yeah, no, he fucking goes into that the bridge.
Kills Burnside. He's like the
Right.
most stylish dude to skateboard.
Right, totally. Right now,
let's
it's
not think about it, and we'll come to
Too
me.
much weed, fuck. I've been smoking too much weed. Do you smoke weed sometimes?
That's my. That's how I manage my pain. Like.
Okay, in your body.
Yeah. For years through injuries, like knee surgeries, and I got fed opiates, and I've had my dealings with those and the demons, and I'm finally like it's been years that I've slayed that dragon. So like
That's great.
Now like it's funny, like when I slam, like when I was skating or whatever before, if I do something and I was hurt, like the first thought my brain would go to is like, all right, who's got pain pills? Where can I get some pain pills? What's going on, you know? And now, like, it's the farthest thing from my thoughts. And it's just, if I'm hurting, if I'm skating all the time, then I'll smoke in the morning. But usually it's just an evening time thing. I'll smoke at night. Or if I'm up here, someone will roll a joint and we'll smoke and film and stuff. But yeah, like that's my one vice.
How broken is your body, and was it worth it?
Well, if you had asked me that question 3 years ago, I would have told you it's completely fucked. Obviously, definitely worth it, you know. But now, like, I have a whole different outlook on healing my body and what I'm capable of, and what just even how I think of things. Like, I can tell myself my knee is going to be better, and I can heal my knee over time. You know, just with positive thinking, eating right, stretching, do it. I won't run unless my legs fucking bent wrong. Like, I'm not going to a doctor. I'm not going to go, you know. And changing certain things in my diet and eating a certain way, and it's given me a longevity in this that I never, like I said 2 years ago, I told you no. You know, definitely worth it. Like I said, it's every bit of what it is. It's made me who I am and where I'm at today, so I wouldn't change it. But I honestly think now, like, barring any major injury, like, I can continue at this level for, like, and it's all a mental thing. I'll post something up, and the first thing that comes to is, oh, slamming like that at our age, you can't, baby. And I'm like, maybe for you, like, it doesn't bother me. Like, I'm doing it, and I'm going to continue doing it. So don't, you know what I mean? Like, don't say, like, maybe for you.
That's programming.
Yeah.
That's telling
like,
your body, like, hey, feel bad because I believe you should feel bad.
Exactly. Like, I'll come out here and feel like crap in the morning, and I just have to tell myself, Kris, you know, don't do anything. Just roll around the park for 15 minutes, move your arms, stretch, do some jumping jacks, you'll be fine. And then I am. And same thing, and like, I mean, you know how it is. You're fucking painting a mural, your arm's up like this forever, you know. The next morning you're like, oh God, I gotta do it again. You know you can power through it, it's gonna suck, but an hour into it, you're right back into it going, you know. I think a lot, and the majority of people, no matter what they're doing, in that warm-up period where they're, oh, I'm sore, that's where 90% of people just give up and want to go home and want to be on their couch or not want to push through it. But if you do anything, it's uncomfortable. If you just do it for a little while, your body gets used to it and you're back into it. So it's all mental. It's all mental.
Nice. Well, that's great that you can power through any issues. So you were telling me that...
Wow.
Holy shit. Garbage can. All right. Hopefully I don't do too much noise, but you were telling me that your art was always there. You're always doodling, and slowly it started creeping into your skateboard career, and now it's just like a career of its own. Was there like a moment where like, I'm also gonna be an artist, and here I go, I'm gonna try and make a living at this shit, or it just started happening from the offers that came to you?
It started happening from the offers that came, and I probably did that for about 8 years that way, and not really pursuing it. Like I would try here and there. And then in 2018, that was like the first time, like I linked up with this gallery in Oceanside. They were a fine art gallery, and it was my first like foray into trying to like do something out of the skateboarding niche, like. And I did a fucking ton of art shows in these like really bougie areas, and it sucked.
Where was that?
In San Diego, like Del Mar, La Jolla.
Okay.
Like,
and it sucked?
It just was like, it sucked more so. It just seemed like everybody was so thirsty. Like any place that I went, any show that I was at, like the other artists was like, it was never a community of like, hey, we can work together, we can do more. It was the same thing how you said you felt in Denver, like, oh, what are you gonna be taking from me? It was like, when you were in these shows, it just seemed like everybody was just ladder climbing, trying to rung climb and get higher than the next person. It was like, I don't know, if you know, I don't know, if you like my art, you like my art, but I'm not gonna fucking, I don't know, I'm not gonna jockey in positioning for you and try to like get over on you so I can get, you know what I mean? Like I'd rather work with you than work like as a competitor or even.
So what changed?
What do you mean?
Like, you know, that whole
I just stopped
competition
working.
Babes, did you move away? Did you try some other
like for that year, like I was just like pounding it, going like this show, and the guy that I was working with that had the gallery had ties with shows and different venues that I normally wouldn't have the connection to. So I basically just went from doing art shows. I don't even know. I hate using bars, but you know how that's seen in like escape. There you'll have at a coffee shop you have it here, or it's at a bar here, or over here. They're very like, not very rarely, but seldomly will I be doing an art show in a gallery. It's usually at some other venue up. And I don't know. I started going to these, and like I said, I probably did eight or nine art shows that year, and at these different venues, and it was a whole different group of people. Not the people coming to see the art was fine, but it was just the artists that like, I guess like that. There's more money involved in that genre and more, or in that area, and those types of shows where the people that are coming aren't skateboarders and they have a ton of money, and that's why they're there is to look at art and collect art, and it's not. And it just seemed like every artist was just way too thirsty, and it just put a bad taste in my mouth. And it's like, you know, like if your art is your art and your art's good enough, then you don't need to be that fucking thirsty. You know, like people will want it and people will get it. I don't know. People that are too thirsty in any walk of life, whether it's skateboarding or art or anything,
it's because there's a lack.
Just slow down, calm down. If it's gonna happen for you, I don't know. That's the way I've always felt.
Right. You know, it's good to be passionate and work hard for your dreams. But it's almost when there's that desperate need, it's like, I gotta make this thing. It's like, why? Like, what's the hole in your chest that you need to fill? That right there is
why it's not gonna happen. If you can figure out and just do it,
right?
You know, like let it happen.
You gotta be so full of this creation and love that it's just natural to spill over and offer it, and people are like, I want a piece of that because I'm vibing with it.
I just don't like when it goes from like this beautiful thing that people are vibing with to this like, I've got to do something sideways and shady to get around. You know what I mean?
Right.
Just to like, I don't know. I just don't like. I don't like that. That's
You're a guy who likes to
tainting
keep it
something.
real.
Yeah.
So in this effort of keeping it real, I know, and you've mentioned it already, that you probably had this struggle of like, are people only buying my art because I'm a famous pro skater? Because they want a piece of Kris Markovich that I can put on their wall, and is my art good enough without the whole pro skater side of things? So I imagine that's why you threw yourself in a different scene to see, like, let's see if my art's good enough for those people who don't know who I am. What's your thoughts about this?
No, that's pretty much exactly what I was trying to do and wanting to do. And I don't know, I just did.
Have you gotten over that in your conversation?
Yeah. No, and I think it was just at that time, 2018, I wasn't skateboarding. So like I said, I felt fragmented. I didn't feel whole. I lost a part of me, not skating, just my identity. And I think now if I was to try to do that and go in to pursue that, I would have a whole different,
You'd be like, fuck yeah, I'm a skater.
I would embrace the skateboarder art side of things,
right?
And show that this is what
not
I
use
am
it as
different
like
than all these other artists in the sense of I come from this culture. You know what I mean?
Right, because you don't have to be like, hey everybody, my art's great because I'm a skater. It's like, no, my art's great because it's great, but it's also great because I'm a skater that made this art. It's like, yeah,
the shit that's in my
it's the same words, but it's the same different intention almost.
Yeah, and it's like you can tell the content where it comes from is a skateboarding background, and it's like you can see the direct link, and I think that makes sense more so for people that have no idea what skateboarding is. They can look at my art, see the art, and then if they see me skateboard or see anything on that side, they can, okay, it kind of makes sense. Like, his brush strokes are super hard, and he grinds into the page. Like, you can kind of transfer that into the way I skate.
There's
like,
a looseness, there's stylistic, there's a griminess, there's a street aspect without necessarily being graffiti. There's a street art. I always thought skate art was street art.
Yeah.
It was a kind of street art, and now that street art is a thing,
right.
Like I don't know, it's hard to define that, but skateboarding is an intriguing culture in itself. And make people who don't skate look at skateboarding like, wow, that looks really interesting, and they dress a certain way and they hang out and stuff. And then there's the art that comes out from that culture. That's intriguing too. Mm-hmm. And you're a real skater, famous or not, you'll always be a real skater that was on the streets and is doing it and is breaking his bones and bleeding, and then presenting some soul expression that comes mixed with that blood, sweat, and tears. So I think that's really like,
that's the goal.
Right. Well, that's what you're doing. Would you say that you're succeeding in the path of making a living from as an artist?
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, you can always say, I wish I was making more. I wish I could have more. If I had more, then I wouldn't have to worry about this or that. But when you just get lost in what I could or what it could, instead of enjoying what's here. And like I said, I am happy where I'm at, and any fruits that come from the labor is just icing on the cake, Right. Just trying to figure more so just being present,
Right.
Like,
we're just so blessed, and the fact that on top of it, we get to skate in the morning and paint in the afternoon, and have a family or people that like us. That's cherries on top.
One of the major things that I did, and it was a simple word, like, you change of perspective, saying like, I get to go do this interview with you today, instead of in the small talk to my wife, well, I gotta go do this, I gotta go do this interview today. No, I get to go do this interview today. Like, be grateful. I'm grateful that I'm sitting outside the skate park right now. Like I said, what is today? Thursday? Wednesday. It's like the middle of the day, Wednesday, on a beautiful sunny day.
Yeah.
There's people like this right now that are like, in there having to do that, and we're out enjoying, and we can walk right over there and ride our skateboards. And you know what I mean? Like, it's amazing.
I also love it that it's late November and I'm in shorts and a t-shirt.
It's not
kind
4 feet of snow.
Kind of sweating. So tell me a little bit about your art. What's the main mediums? Obviously, you paint a lot of skateboards, but you get down on walls and canvases. Tell me a little bit about what you're trying to say with your art.
Well, so I pretty much have them in my wheelhouse of what I normally paint. Yeah, obviously canvas, stretch. I prefer unstretched, just raw canvas on a wall or on a hard surface. And I guess what I would try to convey with my artwork and my painting is when you see a complete painting, a Kris Markovich painting, that it is I have the exact, aside from the physical impacts and the pain, the same exact thing that goes into a skateboarding session goes into painting. Like the thoughts, the emotions, I have skate sessions, like I remember tricks I did, I remember things, like I'll remember slams, and I'll like do grind real hard on the board, you know what I mean? Like I know I'll put that in there. I'll like halfway through a painting, I'll see a picture in my head of somebody turning their ankle, like skating, slamming, like hurting their ankle, and it's like cringeworthy, and I'll like scratch across the painting and scratch my nails into it, and it's like, it's what's going on. There's so much that goes into it. Even if my painting is, it's another fucking face, as everybody says, but there's so much behind it that's gone into it, and like to watch me do it and watch me paint gives a little bit better perspective. But I mean, yeah, I think I try to marry the two internally when I'm doing it.
For me, it's more like when I saw you painting at Jake Rupp's when he had that studio inside the Mega Ramp, and we did our collabo, and I observed you painting. It's like you're just flowing and you're discovering, and sure, you got the structure of the face, which is kind of like your signature in a way, but you're always just kind of like just going. It's almost like
it's like a skate session. When
yeah.
You're out on the street and you go and you're just going street skating in the town. You don't know what you're going to come across. You don't know what you're going to get.
Uh-huh.
The trick comes from the first obstacle you see. You turn a corner, there's a set of steps. Right then, you think of what you're going to do down that. There's no, like, I'm going to this. You may think, I want a 360 flip a set of steps today somewhere. You maybe think that or whatever. You got this certain trick. But you turn the corner, it's right there. Boom. That's when you thought. That's when you become this. When somebody is super, like, spur of the moment, right then, like, that's beautiful. When you see somebody that comes up with something that's creative.
Spontaneous.
With me, like, on a canvas, I'll make a color. And I'll go into a blank canvas and just make a line, a color of something, anything. And then from that's my first set of steps that I see. You know what I'm saying? And that's where I go, and that's where the session starts, and I start building off of that. I never go into a painting thinking, all right, the end result's going to be this. I know certain things that I want to do, certain types of, I don't know, I want to put it on the board or on the canvas like this, and I want to use this application somewhere in there that I've been working on or whatever. But for the most part, it's just complete spur of the moment. When I do murals, it's the hardest thing for me to translate to the client is, I've got your deal, what you guys want, but if you want me to, and I'll do it, but it's never going to look like the sketch. It's never going to.
Yeah.
Like, I can't do that.
Same
and
with me.
It's like, if you can, my art, and you can just trust me.
Yeah.
I'm not going to give you something that's going to look like shit. I'm going to give you something that you're going to be happy with. That's a trust factor for me when it comes to the sketches that I had to, if I do in the sketch, then that, for me, that's an extra bit of work mentally that I have to do.
Right.
But for the most part, whenever I'm doing a painting or whenever I'm painting something, it's all spur of the moment,
right,
on the fly.
So you got to channel, you're channeling energy, feeling the intuition, being spontaneous. And that whole thing where like you are channeling the skate session with falls and stuff, have you ever physically hurt yourself while doing art?
Yes.
How?
Well, dumb shit, I've fallen off ladders, but stretching,
yeah,
like I've fucked my arm up, like I can't reach and I should move one different ladder and get it, but I'll jump and stretch and it like stretches my arm. I did something, I stepped off and stepped on a can and twisted my knee, and I couldn't finish the mural for like until the next week. Like, that's weird when you get hurt and like, dude, I've been skating for this long and I've been able to finish demos with a fucking slam, but I can't finish this mural because I just fell painting.
Right, but at least we gotta be like grateful that as a skater, well, you're proving that you can skate it like, you know, till you're a little bit less young. But as an artist, we could technically like raise our arm and do a painting into our 80s and 90s. As you know, as long as we don't get Parkinson's or something, we can still do it mostly.
Yeah.
So that's a good path.
That's something good. That's a good way to think about it. For like, that's something to look forward to. Like, I can beat the shit out of myself for however long I need to, and then I can still at least, as long as I'm like, can move my arm, I can do it.
So I was gonna ask you, you know, like what's next for you, but it seems like you're just kind of like happy and satisfied in the now, which is a nice combination of family and art and skating.
Yeah, I mean, as far as like, I mean, there's things that I have that I'm working on. I have an art show, a couple art shows coming up in December.
Where?
One here at Grassroots, and that's on December 10th. And then there's this Wayward Walls, it's in Tampa, and it's this dude that just sent out a group text or a group DM day before yesterday inviting a bunch of artists for, I think it's the 13th or 14th of December. It's like a group show in Tampa. I have to get all the info for that one. But I have those two things coming up, and then
didn't you paint for the Tampa Pro this year?
Last year. So COVID happened. 2020 was a wash, and then 2021 they did it, but it was the Pro and Am were right after each other, like 6 weeks. And now this year they spread them apart. This year Lucas Beaufort did it, and so he came in and redid it, but I did it on the one before that.
Okay.
Yeah. So
cool. Hopefully I get in and paint some ramps for them at some point, since I'm local now.
Now I'm sure. I'll tell Brian you're in town, you want to do it.
Yeah, nice.
I'm sure he'd be hyped.
Sick.
But yeah, no, that's just that, and then I was filming for the Techni, the board company I ride for, filming a video part for them, and then a video part for Anchor. And those are just kind of works in progress. So I mean, yeah, I'm just kind of living right now.
That's awesome that you're still filming video parts, because those are no joke, man. Yeah. That's awesome. Props to you. Do you have any final words of wisdom to the viewers of this humble little show?
If I was to say anything, I would say just be there for others. Like, the more that you can help others get by and do just anything, whether they need help with, I don't know, they've got a flat tire, give them help. Give somebody, shake their hand, give them, just be positive. And I've found that the nicer that I am and the more mellow that I am in every situation in my life, whether it be at a drive-through or a cash register, if I have a smile on my face and I'm polite, that does wonders. Like, because you don't know what the other person is going through at that moment. And I've had somebody, I was at the laundromat the other day and I moved my cart and this old man said something to me. And I turned around and my hair stood up on the back of my neck, and my first natural inclination was just to lash out at him and be like, no, I'm here, blah, blah, because I was in the right. And I just turned around and looked at him and I was like, oh, this was, and I was super polite to him, and then like his whole demeanor changed, and we actually had a good conversation for like 5 or 10 minutes while I was waiting for my clothes to dry. And it could have gone on the way that I reacted, it could have gone very, very bad, and it could have just had a negative reaction, but I just swallowed everything and was like, all right, it was nice to him. And that's like a perfect analogy for how you should live every day of your life to everybody you meet.
Right, that's a beautiful way of about going through life. And it's also nice to pop people's bubbles, because I could imagine perhaps the guy at the laundromat was like, oh, look at this like tattooed punk, this, that maybe it intimidates him, so he's got to be all like kind of tough to like match his illusion of who you are. But then you're a sweetie, he's like, oh shit, like I had it wrong, so I can be a sweetie now.
I'm the least intimidating person with this many tattoos. You know what I mean? Like, I get it all the time. People are like,
yeah.
I'm gonna be nice to you. I'm gonna be polite. I'm gonna say yes sir, no sir, yes ma'am, no ma'am. Like, I'm gonna be polite to you. I'm not,
Well, it's great to pop those bubbles of stereotypes and projection and show that a person's a person for how they act, not for how they look.
Exactly.
So you gotta drop all that. So thank you so much, Kris. I really
course.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Woo!
Welcome
And
to St. Pete.
thank you so much, man. And thank you guys for watching another episode of Kris Dyer's Creative Friends. Please press the like button, comment if anything resonated with you, share this episode, subscribe, and please let more people know about this humble show. I'll see you next time. Blessings. Woo! Next episode, my guest will be Claudia LaBianca.
I'm the type of person that I say that I never heard it before, and so I came up with it. But I'll jump off a plane without a parachute, with the faith that I know that I'm gonna grow wings to fly. You know, like
Wow.
I'm that type of like I take the risk. It's easy to give up. You know, it's also and that's what it is again about my sexy woman in my art. You know, it's what's behind it, right? It's all mindset. It's like, so we are limited about our potentials because we have fears, because somebody have said in the past when we were young, no, you can't be an artist, and you can't be a full mom, and you can't be a full-time mom, and you can't live off your art. I never had those fears. I fought those fears. You know, I fought those fears, and I'm like, no, I'm gonna try, and I'm gonna try to be, strong in my own belief.
So please make sure to subscribe, like, comment, and share. Big thanks, and see you next episode. Peace.